Fallout Equestria Survivors Guild, Chapter 12, Part 2.
Hey, Scootaloo. The baby's crying again.
A voice said in the dark as I woke up. It took me a moment to realize that I was back in my dream realm. I could hear the sound of a foal crying in the other room over the baby monitor as me and Sweetie got out of the bed. I yawned a little as we walked into the next room and Sweetie gently picked up the foal out of her crib. I smiled down at the little filly, and she had an orange coat with a purple mane with two different tones. She looked up at us with her purple eyes as she calmed down a little bit.
Well, some pony's a little bit hungry,
Sweetie Belle said with a smile as she nuzzled our daughter gently.
Come on, Sparky, let's get you fed.
Sparky? Well, our daughter's name was Sparky then, and I couldn't help but smile a little as Sweetie set herself up so that the foal could nurse.
She's really beautiful,
I finally said as Sweetie gave me a smile and placed her hoof on mine.
Yeah, she really is,
Sweetie said with a smile as she looked at me for a long moment.
So, what's going through your mind lately, Scootaloo? Oh, I'm just thinking about some things.
I said softly and I squeezed her hoof a little.
About friends, family, our loved ones, what's been happening and what has been happening. Well, the doctor said that you're doing a lot better,
Sweetie Belle said with a smile.
Though we did it, Scootaloo. We survived the war and things are starting to return to what they were like before. You got what you wanted. I know exactly what I wanted,
I said with a smile as I kissed Sweetie softly on the lips.
I have a beautiful wife, 2 wonderful daughters. I couldn't be much happier. Me neither.
We sat there in silence for a while as Sparky continued to nurse. I looked at the little filly for a long moment, and it made it even worse that this was really just a dream because Sparky, well, she never really got the chance to live because of how the war ended. How the war really ended. I started to cry a little, and Sweetie Belle gently wiped my tears away.
What's going on, Scootaloo? It's just, I'm just happy to have the both of you.
I said as I nuzzled Sweetie.
You're the best family America can ask for.
Sweetie just smiled as Sparky finished nursing. She gave me the filly, and for the first time, I held my daughter in my hooves, cradling her gently as she looked up at me and cooed sweetly.
Hey there, Sparky,
I said with a smile as her purple eyes met mine.
My beautiful little filly.
I just sat there for the longest time holding my daughter in my hooves. Sweetie put her foreleg around me and smiled as Sparky slowly drifted off to sleep. I don't know why I keep having these dreams or if some force out there is causing them, but thank you for this one moment. It means more to me than anything else I've ever experienced in my life.
We did a good job, didn't we, Sweetie?
I asked as I looked up at the beautiful unicorn mare next to me.
We certainly did,
Sweetie Belle said, and she kissed me softly on the lips.
I'm glad that we made this work. I can't think of any pony I'd rather spend the rest of my life with. Neither can I
said softly as we gently placed the sleeping foal back into her crib. I just stood there watching her sleep before Sweetie placed a hoof onto my shoulder.
Come on, tomorrow's Family Appreciation Day at school. You don't really want to be too tired to do your Red Racer presentation, do you?
Sweetie Belle asked with a smirk.
Oh, of course not,
I said with a smile and nuzzled Sweetie before we headed back to the bedroom. I woke up the next morning to the sound of an alarm. I bolted up out of bed as Cherry was already waking up and rubbing the sleep out of her eyes.
What's going on?
Cherry said with a yawn.
What's the alarm? I set the computer to alert us if any pony enters the entrance tunnel outside of the stable,
Star said as she was getting her weapons ready.
It might just be scavengers, but, well, it might be the Enclave,
I said, and with that, we were both fully awake.
Well, here's hoping that the tunnel has collapsed. Alright, what's the status on the hologram systems? Well, they're online, but I don't know if we should turn them onto the town,
Art commented.
We haven't tested the systems yet, so we don't even know if they'll be able to handle the amount of computing power we'll need. Wait, what's about something small?
I asked.
Not an entire town of ponies, but just a few. Maybe some defenses that can be used against the Enclave, maybe?
That could work, Gearframe said. At the very least, it should buy us some time to think of a plan.
Okay, we'll get right on it,
Ark said with a nod, and she went to the terminal.
In the meantime, we'll set up some defenses, so any chance that you have mines or something, Star?
I asked as I looked at the Pegasus.
Yeah, I have a few. That should help.
Star said with a nod as she went to get them set up.
Okay, Cherry, you and me will get the defenses set up from here and outside.
I said as I turned to look at Cherry.
If all else fails, we'll use the escape tunnel to hide out and maybe we can get into the other parts of the stable.
She nodded as we started to get to work. I just had a hope that we'd have enough time to do this. I took in a deep breath as we started to set up the lockers in the office to serve as barriers in the event of an attack. It was not gonna be easy. We weren't exactly in the most defensible of positions. The stable had some defenses, but the Enclave wouldn't need to do much in order to overwhelm them. I looked around, and honestly, I was wondering if maybe this was the wrong place to be. If they were after the key, they'd come here first. Given the stable isn't even inhabited, they might ignore the rest of the stable even.
So, can you access the system remotely?
I asked as I looked at Gearframe. Yeah, sure. There's a secondary command console down in maintenance, Gearframe said. We'll just have to make sure that it's working up here. Why do you ask?
Because I have an idea. It's just gonna take a little bit of work,
I said with a smirk as I outlined my plan.
So, we have to assume that at this point that the Enclave knows that we're in here. Whoever's feeding them information probably told them that. So, here's what I propose. We set up holograms of ourselves here and let them be taken out by the Enclave, and if we're lucky, they'll think that we're dead and leave us alone. You know, that actually could work,
Ark admitted.
We just have to input the programs, but that should be easy enough. So, can you do that, Gearframe?
No problem, I can take care of it, he said with a nod as he started to get to work on his part of the plan. I'll throw in a few surprises of my own. They're not taking the stable without a fight. I smiled and nodded as we continued to set up the defenses. It was time to make it look like we were having our last stand. I just hoped that the Enclave would fall for it. The holograms were realistic enough that they probably might. Now, it was time to put on a shadow play for the Enclave.
Does my flank really look that big?
I asked as I looked at the holographic projection of me. She wasn't activated yet, and it was strangely creepy to see a copy of myself.
I think that my coat makes it look bigger than it really is. Your flank looks fine,
Cherry said with a roll of her eyes.
Don't worry about it. I'm not so sure that this is gonna work,
Star said as she examined the holograms.
They look real enough, but Cloud Chaser is smarter than the other generals. He might be able to see through them. Well, let's hope that he doesn't,
I said with a sigh as we got them all into position.
So, if this doesn't work, we'll figure something else out. I hope so,
Cherry said with a nod as we started to get our gear together.
This is a gamble already, and the odds aren't exactly in our favor. We'll manage somehow,
I said with a nod.
Don't worry about it. We'll make it out of here alive.
Cherry nodded as we left the office and navigated around the mines to start down the stairs. According to the external sensors, the Enclave were getting close to tunneling through the rubble, but they probably would have to make a larger tunnel and take longer to get in here than we did, so we had a lot of time. After what seemed like an eternity, we reached the maintenance wing and entered the chief's office, locking the door behind us. Now, we just had to wait, which mostly consisted of hanging around the office and reading whatever we happened to have on hoof as we remained completely quiet. We heard the explosions even this far into the stable as the Enclave hit the mines before it went quiet again. I hated not knowing what was going on, so we were just sitting there as whatever was happening above just kept happening.
Do you think that they got all of them?
Cherry whispered.
I doubt it. We didn't have enough mines to take out as many ponies as they might have sent.
I whispered back.
We'll be okay as long as they think that we're dead.
She nodded and the whole room remained quiet for the longest of time before suddenly the speakers above us went off. The voice that I heard sent a chill up my spine. It was cold, calculating with a Trottingham accent to it. At first it almost reminded me of Winter Breeze, but this was a different, colder, and more calculating voice. It was a nice try, little ponies, but your holograms aren't nearly enough to fool me. I know you're still in this stable somewhere, and I will not stop until the traitors are brought before me.
That's Cloud Chaser,
Star whispered to me.
I told you that he wouldn't fall for it. He's too smart to fall for that trick. Great. There goes that plan,
I said with a groan. The key to Protocol Zeta will be removed, of course, so your dirty little secret is already one step closer to being in the enclaves of Scootaloo. Now, all of it is up to you. Are you willing to risk the lives of your companions, or will you, and the Dashite with you, surrender to the Enclave? It occurred to me at this point that he didn't even know where we were, that gave us an advantage at least. I noticed that there was an intercom on the wall, so it wasn't like that we couldn't really talk to him, but that would be suicide at this point. We just had to hope that he wouldn't be able to find us. If you surrender, your friends will be allowed to go free along with any survivors of this dead stable. The President is looking forward to overseeing your interrogation personally, Scootaloo. And as for Shooting Star, well, she knows what fate awaits her already. I really hated the way he said that.
So, what do you think the odds are that he'll let them go if we surrender?
I asked Star.
I don't know. He's more often than not honest, but he's playing some sort of new game here.
Star said with a shake of her head.
So, we have to be careful, and please, don't trust a word that he says, okay? Oh boy. What I'd give for a zebra invisibility cloak or just a stealth buck right now.
I said with a groan, and then an idea hit me.
Wait. Hey, Gearframe, can the holograms be programmed to cover up ponies like they do with walls and objects?
Sure. It would take just some tweaking for the program, Gearframe said with a nod. What are you thinking? You will have an hour to surrender before we start searching the stable, room by room for you. My soldiers have orders to kill you on sight unless you surrender, so you better use that time wisely. There was a burst of static as he finally finished.
Okay, alright, here's my plan.
I said.
Okay, so I want this room to change to look like it was when we came in. Hide, the three of you, and we'll go surrender to Cloud Chaser. It'll at least buy you some time to escape or maybe mount a rescue, okay? Preferably the latter,
Star said with a groan. It was clear that she really did not like this plan.
I'd rather not be punished by Cloud Chaser right now. Do I even want to know what he meant? Cloud Chaser has some rather unique-looking animals at his disposal that R&D Genetics developed,
Star said as she shuddered.
One such animal has a powerful venom that causes a lot of pain, but it won't kill you. In fact, it's magical in nature, so it'll actually actively keep you alive for as long as it's running through your veins, as the pain slowly drives you mad, and he savors it for traders. Okay, yeah, that doesn't sound pleasant,
I said with a groan as we started working to get the hologram set up.
Let's just hope that they don't figure out a way around the holograms.
It took us most of the hour to get it set up, but by the time we were done, it was just me and Star standing in a seemingly empty room. I just took a deep breath and hit the button onto the intercom.
General Cloud Chaser, this is Scootaloo,
I said into the intercom. Oh, Scootaloo. I'm very glad to hear from you. Is Shooting Star with you? The calm voice of the stallion said on the other end.
Yes. Yeah, she's with me. Here with me,
I said as I glanced at Star.
I want your assurances that our friends will be unharmed if we surrender to you.
You will have my word that they will be unharmed and will be allowed to leave the stable once we're finished, Cloud Chaser said onto the other end. Come out into the atrium unarmed and we will have you escorted to the Overmare's office. Now, if you do come armed, I will flood the lower levels with poison gas.
Understood. We'll be there,
I said as the intercom clicked off. I took out my weapons and set them down as Star did the same. With considerably more weapons, mind you. I swear, she was like a walking arsenal.
Are you sure about this, Scootaloo?
Cherry asked as she and Ark briefly stepped out of the hologram.
We don't really have a choice. I said I'd make sure that you and your filly were safe. I'm not gonna let the Enclave get you,
I said as I hugged Cherry gently.
I'll be okay. We'll figure something out.
Cherry nodded and hugged back.
It's just... I don't want to lose you. I'll be fine, Cherry. I promise. We'll see each other again soon,
I said with a smile, and it was a promise that I hoped that I could keep.
Okay, Scootaloo. Okay, I trust you,
Cherry said with a nod as we released the hug after a long moment. I nodded and headed to the door with Star. I took in one last look back at my friends before they re-entered the hologram, and me and Cherry locked eyes one more time, and I knew that there was something I had to do if this really was going to be the last time I ever got to see her. I turned and galloped over to the Earth Pony mare and took her in my forelegs gently and kissed her onto the lips. Cherry was shocked, to say the least, but after a long moment she relaxed and returned the kiss. We held it for a few minutes, but it felt like an eternity before we finally released and gazed into each other's eyes.
What was that?
Cherry asked, her face turning red.
Just a thank you for being the most wonderful mare in the wasteland.
I said as my face heated up.
In case, well, you know.
Cherry nodded and released the hug before heading into the hologram. Whew, I couldn't believe that I had just done that. So, what was I gonna do now?